Hello everyone. So tonight what we're going to look at is the introduction to communication that's going to be used by Task Force Athena going forward in terms of the radio usage and such. What we've noticed is quite regularly there are issues with people at the start of the mission asking which radio frequency to be under and such. So hopefully this video should give a brief overview of the new frequency structure and systems that we'll be using going forward, as well as giving some useful hints and tips and such for optimal radio communication. To give a brief overview of the Task Force Athena structure, for anyone who's new or indeed wishes to have a refresher on it, this will be pervasive throughout this video and presentation. So at the top you have Spartan Actual. One of the key premises to use going through this activity is the word actual basically means the person who is in command of that named entity. So in this case, Spartan Actual means that whoever is using the call sign Spartan Actual is in command of Spartan. In the normal scenario, this would be Wolfhound. Because this is a game, we have a Zeus character, that's normally Harrison or Nuff, and Spartan Actual speaks to them over a frequency. Underneath Spartan, there are two separate squads, Hades and Artemis. Hades is comprised of two fire teams Alpha and Bravo. Artemis is comprised of Charlie and Delta. Within each fire team, there is a leader nominated at the start of the mission, and they adopt the call sign Alpha Actual, or Bravo Actual, Charlie Actual, or Delta Actual. By default, and this is conducted at the beginning of August 2019, Alpha Actual is Sim, Bravo Actual is Grinkle, Charlie Actual is Pope, and Delta Actual is Thor. Underneath those fire team leads, they have a fire team comprising a variable number of people. These people underneath will be given nomenclatures of the name of the fire team they are in, followed by 2, 3, 4, for example. So Alpha Actual is also known as Alpha 1. The reason for this is Alpha Actual is the leader of the squad, but if Alpha 1 is disabled, Alpha 2 would step up and become Alpha Actual. So for example, in this so here, Alpha Actual is Alpha 1, Alpha 2, Alpha 3, Alpha 4, and we can look at that later on. Equally, Bravo, which is the example used later on, has Bravo Actual, who is normally Bravo 1, Grinkle, and then they have a Bravo 2, who is normally Seahorse, and they also have a Bravo 3, Bravo 4, and Bravo 5. That's where Dove, myself, and Cap reside. We are Bravo team members. Okay, we've now covered the basic overview of the command structure of Task Force Athena, so let's now look at the radio frequencies. What we're going to do going forward is we are going to have two separate radio, what would be the best way of putting it, options. We have the standard radio communication, which is the screen that we're seeing now. However, if we don't have enough people to make this the most effective way, we have a simplified radio communication standard. But we'll look at the more complex one first, because this is what we'll normally play if we have a lot of people. On this sheet there are two tables. In the top table it is focused on channels, and the bottom table is focused on individuals. So if you look along this, you've got the used by and then the channel. So channel 50 is the primary transmit of Spartan Actual, and the secondary transmit of Hades Actual and Artemis Actual, and no one else should be listening in on channel 50. Basically what this means, and this carries on throughout, Spartan Actual will be mainly transmitting on channel 50, and that will be heard and responded to by Hades Actual and Artemis Actual using their secondary transmit on their radio. Coming down to Hades Actual primary is 125. That is what they talk on, normally, and basically the secondary transmit has the option of alpha actual or Bravo actual. And this carries on down the line. So if you hear, for example, someone transmitting on 175, it'll either be Artemis actual, Charlie actual, or Delta actual. Once we get down to the individual fire teams, they're broken down into Alpha being on 125.1, Bravo being on 125.2, Charlie being on 175.1, and Delta being on 175.2. That's looking at the channel structure, basically, from a high level. If we think about what people would actually be working on, and the easiest way for you to do is, once we tell you at the start of the mission, right, we're using the standard radio communication, you look on this chart here, find yourself, and tune your radio. So, for example, myself being a Bravo member, I would look at my primary frequency as 125.2, so I would tune my radio to that, and I would tune my secondary channel to none, i.e., as a Bravo member, I would not expect to be on a secondary radio frequency. I should only be on 125.2 as a default. The italics up here is listen only. I have the option, if I wish, to listen in on 125. Alpha, as described above, is 125.1, Charlie 175.1, and Delta 175.2. If I now skip forward a couple of slides, actually, I can put this clearly. Yeah, here we go, this one. Okay, so here is the breakdown of a standard communication pattern. Spartan can talk to Zeus on 25. No one else should be listening on that, absolutely, because that'll spoil the game experience. Spartan Actual talks on channel 50 to Hades Actual and Artemis Actual. So Hades Actual's secondary is 50, back to Spartan, as is Artemis Actual. We then have what I've called the communication domain of 125. And 125 comprises Hades Actual, Alpha Actual, and Bravo Actual. Drilling down further, Bravo Actuals has a dual frequency, so they're listening in and replying to Hades Actual on 125, but their primary communication is down to their fire team members in this grey communication domain of 125.2. So in that communication domain live Bravo fire team members and Bravo Actual on their primary. That's repeated across the board, so if you're an Alpha, your communication domain is 125.1, Charlie 175.1, Delta 175.2. So this basically shows the communication domains of the various elements as we go through. Right, that was that screen. If we have limited numbers, we shall execute the simple radio communication method. And in the simple radio communication method, the following holds true. The primary transmit of Spartan Actual is 50. And secondary on channel 50, secondary transmits are Hades Actual and Artemis Actual. And if people wish, within the fire team leads can listen in on 50, basically. So if we have limited numbers, everyone who is an actual, i.e. a leader, can hear on 50. In the simple method, Hades is all on 125 for their primary, and Artemis is all on 175 as their actual. So basically we're getting rid of the fire team radios when we opt for the simple approach. Down here, basically, if we announce at the start of the briefing that we are using the simple radio communications team, find your name on this, tune your radio. I'm a Bravo member, so Bravo member there. I tune my primary to 125, so that's different, because previously I would have tuned it to 125.2. So in this case, I am only on 125, and I don't have any secondary frequency. In fact, in the simple mode, the problem, the only people who have the hassle of dealing with two frequencies are Hades Actual and Artemis Actual, because they need to be on their 125, for example for Hades, to communicate with the Hades members, but also on 50 to be able to communicate on with Spartan. If we zoom down to simple, this is the graphical representation of what we've just discussed. Spartan can talk out to Zeus. Spartan talks to Hades actual and Artemis actual on 50. Hades talks to everyone in Hades via filtering via Alpha actual and Bravo actual on 125. And then Alpha actual talks down to his fireteam members on 125, as does Bravo. While everyone is on 125, for example, in Hades, or 175 in Artemis, I would very much appreciate it if fireteam members did not pass messages directly to Hades actual. Follow the chain, so fireteam members communicate with their actual of the fireteam communicates with actual of the squad communicates with actual of the platoon. That's the structure. Simple is purely and simply because we don't want to have people needing to change frequencies if there's only 10 of us or such playing. That basically concludes the structure. This is all in the document, standard and such. We'll do a little bit now on good comms discipline. This is one thing that we need to be quite good on. We'll just run through the bullet points one by one. The basic way of communicating most effectively is it is me, over. So, for example, I'm playing the role of Bravo 4, for example, in this instance. So, you say who you want to talk to. That's actually the wrong way around. No, it's not. No, that's correct. Oh, right. Who you want to talk to and who you are. So I'm Bravo 4, wanting to pass a message to Grinkle as Bravo Actual. So I say, Bravo Actual, this is Bravo 4, over. And then I wait. I don't say anything else. I wait until Grinkle, as Bravo Actual, responds, and Grinkle will say, Bravo 4, this is Bravo Actual, send, over. I then give a concise report of the thing that I wanted to put out on the next. So I go, and remember, you've still got to do you as me at the start, but without the you are. So Bravo Actual, Bravo 4, 2 BMPs seen bearing 090, 400 meters, over. The next action that needs to happen is there needs to be a confirmation of that message. So the person needs to confirm receipt of the message and end with the keyword out, if nothing further. So Grinkle would respond with Bravo 4, Bravo Actual, received, out. Separately, on a separate network, I would expect Grinkle, as Bravo Actual, to relay that up to Hades Actual on the frequency allocated for there. Final point is know your communication domains and understand them. The communication domains are what these sort of groupings are. So Hades Actual, Alpha Actual, and Bravo Actual is a communication domain. Alpha Actual and Alpha team members is a communication domain. What you need to understand, therefore, is you, as an Alpha team member, cannot hear Bravo team member, Charlie team member, Delta team member, Hades Actual, Artemis Actual, Spartan Actual, or Zeus. This is much like if you're in a crowded room having a little chat with your friends and so on. You can't hear what's going on the other side of the room. But if someone wishes to make an announcement, for example, they can, and it would filter down through the process. Other points to note, not necessarily for radio. If everyone you need to tell something to is beside you, use local chat, don't use radio. This could be things like if you're just chatting about medical, if you're saying like bandaging your leg, etc. I'm the worst for it. I sometimes occasionally say that over the radio, even though the person I'm treating is literally, I have my hands on their leg. So that's that. Second point, listen before you transmit. Now this isn't really modelled in the game, but it's good practice. Radio communications by default are half duplex. That means they can either transmit or receive. They cannot do both at the same time. We actually modelled this when we did the World War II campaign. It's still worth bearing in mind that you don't want to overtalk someone. And in reality, only one station on a frequency can transmit at one time. So therefore, it's important to listen before you transmit. Final thing, observe and use keywords and understand what they mean. Over means you now may talk. I'm awaiting a reply from you. As in, I want something to come back from you. Out means I have finished speaking and expect no further communication from you on that specific point. They may well wish to communicate with something else, but that would form a new exchange of messages. Roger means I have heard your message. Now, technically, this doesn't mean that you've understood it, nor that you'll follow what's asked. So if I was to receive a command from Bravo Actual, so it would be Bravo 4, Bravo Actual, move 200 meters northwest. If I was to come back with Bravo Actual, Bravo 4, Roger, that does not mean that I'm actually going to complete the order as passed down by Grinkle. That simply means I've heard your message. It's one of these radio, however you want to phrase it. Wilco is a much better message to use. That means I have heard your message and will comply. So if we have Grinkle going Bravo 4, Bravo Actual, engage BMP north, current location, I would go back Bravo Actual, Bravo 4, Wilco. That basically means I have understood his message and will comply. A couple of other things. Say again. If you are busy, like if you're firing your gun or whatever and you don't hear a message, use say again. Do not use the word repeat. Now this is a bit milsimmy, but it has been pointed out on multiple occasions to me myself when I have done it. The reason is repeat is a fire support action. So if you have called in a barrage from artillery, for example, you don't want to use the word repeat because they will fire the same fire mission again. A good example there would be if it was Bravo 4, Bravo Actual, move meters north. I would wait and listen, and then I would go Bravo Actual, Bravo 4, say again, over. So I use say again to say repeat it, and I used over because I'm awaiting a reply. Final thing, break. Too many videos have break. We don't need that. It's highly overused by us, but basically it means be quiet, don't transmit until the person calling break is finished. Normally it's used to break into a radio transmission, but equally validly, if you are giving a long transmission yourself, you can use the word break to show that you're pausing, and anyone else with more urgent information can jump in, because remember, radio is half duplex. The important thing to note is if someone says break mid-speaking, that is not an over or an out. It is a break. They are pausing to give someone with more important information a chance to break in. If someone says break when they're relaying a fire mission, don't jump in with a command about, oh, I see some infantry over to the left. They're 1,000 meters away. That's not more important information. More important information would be close contact, 12 o'clock. Okay. Study this doc. It's worth it to understand exactly what frequency you should be in. Know which fire team you're in. That should all be pre-described. Know your communication domains. Know who you're going to be able to talk to. And I think that pretty much concludes it. If there are any questions, leave comments in the session below, or I will run through this at the start of the next mission when we're all together, and we can take it forward from there. Thank you very much for listening.